The financial mess we find our economy in, we all have to eat. And to save a few bucks, our kitchens will become the most popular restaurants. Our Fresh at 4 food contributor, Jennifer English, tells us it's back to basics for a lot of families.
Happy New Year, everybody. I'm Jennifer English, and I'm here at Tucson Wholesale Supply with my friend Colleen Edwards. And we're going to talk about back to basics, because in this challenging economy, more of us are experiencing the pressures of finances and competing for those scarce resources, and we're frankly not able to eat out as often as we used to. But it doesn't mean we have to sacrifice, because I believe that some of the best restaurant food that's happening today is also following a back to basics theme. Why is it that one of the hottest restaurants in Tucson right now, Jack's Kitchen, is serving up comforting food? Think about it. They call it the food that you wish you grew up with, which means home cooked food. Perfect roast chicken. Well, I don't think you have to go all the way up to Jack's, although I think it's absolutely delicious, to have a perfect roast chicken. Roasting is the cooking of foods in an oven using dry heat in a pan like this one, uncovered, so that the air and the heat circulate around, creating that wonderful roasted effect. Every culture in the world knew that grilling or roasting meats brought out all its succulence. That's what we're going to be doing here. There's some other restaurant tricks that we're going to teach you here. Roasting is a really good technique. Seasoning your food well is another technique that's going to make your food that you cook at home as satisfying as anything you're going to get in a restaurant. And the other trick, or it's not really a trick, it's just a technique that restaurants use, is they know how to cook their things perfectly. And when you go to a restaurant, you order something medium, well done, rare, medium rare, that's a temperature. And all of those things tie into why roasting is such a really effective, easy technique. It also doesn't require a lot of attention. Once you put it in the oven to do its thing, if the oven's doing its job, your job is pretty much done. So what we have here is a really lovely organic chicken. And just to get it ready for roasting, what I'm going to do is remember that you want to get a lot of flavor throughout the bird. And so what we're going to do, we've washed and dried this bird thoroughly. And what we're going to use is to fill the cavity while it's roasting with some aromatics. To me, aromatics are things like onion and celery. And for my taste, I love, because I'm from New England originally, a little bit of apple. As the chicken roasts in its roasting rack, in the roasting pan, it's going to give a wonderful sweetness and almost a fruitiness to it. You're not going to eat this, it's just going to permeate the flesh. So here's what we've got. We've got a beautiful chicken with the aromatics tucked inside. It's been salted, and we're going to apply a little bit of fresh black pepper. Every recipe in the world says season to taste. That means one good salt and one good pepper to bring up all the flavor that the item, in this case the chicken, has to offer. We're just enhancing the chicken flavor. I like to sprinkle some smoked paprika on the top of the bird before I pop it in the oven, so just bear with me while I do that. And one of the things that happens is the paprika, as the chicken cooks and gets nice and juicy, gives it a wonderful color. I don't know if you remember those Wonder Roast chickens from when you were a kid that used to come from the grocery store all sort of paprika'd up and crispy skinned and ready to go. It's kind of what we're recreating here. One of the tricks that I have for making a really juicy chicken is to actually cook it breast side down. And what that does is it allows all of the juices to settle in the breast, the white meat, so that when you're done and when you take it out, I'll show you what we do. We're going to put it in the roasting rack like this. And what I do is, this is breast side, we're going to put breast side down. And what that's going to allow me to do is season the other side of the bird and collect all the juicy juices as the bird is cooking.
Yeah, I remember growing up and having that pot roast or the roasted chicken for Sunday dinner. It really is back to basics, isn't it?
Sunday supper and simple pleasures like roasted chicken and pot roast are made more sweet and delicious if you're there with your family around the table.
Yeah, I actually went ahead and made this recipe on Sunday for my husband. And it turned out, he even said, this is the tastiest chicken I've ever had. I was so excited.
I'm so proud of you.
The only thing is,
and it was easy, right?
It was very easy. Oh, it was brainless. You know, you don't have to have a brain to put this thing together. But
thanks.
But, no insult intended. But I did notice it kind of burnt, some drippings were coming down, and it was causing a little bit of smoking, and that kind of, should I have put water at the bottom of the pan?
Well, not really, because you want to think about what you're doing here. You've got a nice juicy bird. It may have a little bit of fat in the skin somewhere on the ends. We don't trim it off because we actually want that, especially if we want to build a beautiful gravy to slather on our mashed potatoes. Because one of the the beautiful things about comfort foods, or what I call comforting foods, because they actively comfort us, is that it's almost prescribed. There are certain things. You can't have mashed potatoes without a little bit of homemade gravy. And when it's homemade, it's even more delicious. In order to make a homemade gravy, of course, you need the pan drippings. So we leave the fat and the skin on the bird, and we let it cook down. And what happens is all that juice collects in the bottom of the pan. Now you've got a pan full of oil. If you've got apples and celery and things on the surface or inside the bird and they fall out, or they land somehow in the pan, it's like putting something in hot oil for 45 or 50 minutes. It's going to burn, and it might smell. And so you have to be really careful about keeping it clean. That's why people like Julia Child would truss up the end of the bird.
To keep everything in.
I wore my farmhouse shirt for you today because we did it farmhouse style, which is even more simple than that. People like to tuck the wings, truss up the end of the bird, tie the legs together, make it pretty. You know why I don't do that? Because I want the crispy skin, because at your house, I don't know if it's like at mine, we fight over the crispy skin. Everybody wants that crispy bit. Under the skin here, it almost forces you, by doing it breast side down, to eat and enjoy all the dark meat, all this beautiful skin, and then these oysters right here. It's right under the shoulders of the bird. I know, we were talking about this before in the break, and we were saying that is the most delicious part. And usually the cook gets to enjoy that. It's shaped almost like an oyster, and it's so succulent and delicious. And this way you get the breast meat juicy, and you can make sandwiches with it.
It was wonderful.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. And that's recipe courtesy of Jennifer. Thank you so much.